Learning to work with my nervous system and drain my waste management system, which is my lymphatic system, changed my life. I was chronically ill with unexplainable symptoms that no doctor was giving me answers to other than you need medication, girl. And let me tell you, that was the most frustrating thing to get gaslit by the medical industry. I worked as a licensed pharmacy tech for 11 years. And when I first started that job, I was in my early 20s and it totally made sense for where I was in my life. But as the years went on, I evolved as a human being and became way more energetically conscious and what I like to call more awake. So as I woke up out of this fog of programming our reality puts us in, I realized the job role I was in was quite literally the opposite of the person I had become while working there. Working in an industry where I'm quite literally giving human beings synthetic man made drugs to quote unquote fix their problems was very frustrating because I'm seeing the same person come in for 10 years straight on Norco. You are on a narcotic for 10 years for chronic pain. So you're telling me for 10 years, the entire medical staff that's working with you hasn't solved your pain? That's actually absurd. And if we're not seeing that as a business, I think we need to go check ourselves before we riggedy wreck ourselves. I've learned through the years to not get angry at the nurses and the doctors and the medical staff because they're literally only taught what they're telling you. They don't know anything better other than diagnosing and prescribing. And then they've trained us as patients to feel like we weren't cared for if we leave the doctor and they don't diagnose or prescribe us. It's this disgusting, vicious cycle that I was determined to detach from. And I did so 3 years ago when I left that job to do what I do now full time, which is help people reclaim their power, reclaim their health, and reduce pain naturally without medications and with your own God-given skills and knowledge. So, along this journey, I went through my own health journey, figuring out that I had mold poisoning and chronic stress, and my nervous system was literally at the peak of being overloaded when I figured out how to control all of this. So, at the start of my health journey, I felt very lost, like most of us. I was not getting any answers from the doctor. And I was almost kind of gaslighting myself into like convincing myself I was not as sick as I really was. And I was almost ignoring my symptoms, convincing myself I was just overtraining. I was at the peak of my competition career, competing multiple times a month, all throughout the year at a very, very high level in a very hard combat sport that kind of literally keeps me in fight or flight. Like jujitsu, come on, we're fighting people. You're in a very high adrenaline state. So that sport was not helping my energetic state. But I was dealing with things from the age I turned 30 to about 34 with severe acne. And I will enter photos right here because I'm like weirdly proud of how bad my skin was. It was insane. I did not show my face on social media. I did not go out. Every time I would leave jujitsu, which was like at that time the only thing that was giving me happiness, my face was literally bleeding. I had severe cystic acne, and all these doctors were telling me that I needed to be on birth control, which I don't believe in, synthetic hormones, no thank you, and what was it? Clarivis, which you have to be on birth control because if you get pregnant on Clarivis, your baby literally turns into a conehead and has major birth defects. And I had been working in a pharmacy for about 11 years at that time. So I was like very aware of how toxic these medications are. And I knew that my skin was doing that because of my gut, and not one doctor would test my gut or my hormones, which pissed me off because I worked for Kaiser. So I basically had like free health insurance. I wouldn't have copays. And I would just ask these doctors to run labs and they would be like, no, we can't. We can't test your hormones. It's too hard to tell. I'm like, so you're just going to put me on random birth controls until you find one that matches my hormones, but you won't test my hormones to see if I even need birth control, to see if that's why my skin's doing this. Turns out it was a stress and gut issue, which no one asked me about, even though I was checking into urgent care for panic attacks, which by the way, I never had a panic attack until I was dealing with all this chronic stress. No one told me you feel like you're dying, okay? No one told me that's what panic attacks feel like. On top of the horrible, almost like fungal acne, if you look at those photos, it's in like a weird pattern. And look at my skin now. Like, can you even tell that that was like, if you didn't see my beauty marks on my neck, that could have been someone else's face. Like, I don't even understand how my skin looked like that. Because even if you look at those photos, like my skin underneath the acne looked like this. It was so weird. It was like someone else's fungus on my face. And then I was getting, I put up a whole video about how dysregulated I was, waking up covered in sweat, bad sleep cycles, insomnia, waking up fatigued. But on top of that, I was getting the craziest rashes that no one could figure out of nowhere. Out of nowhere. I'm inserting photos for those too. I was getting these insane rashes where they would get so bad anytime my body would get overheated. So I was getting major night sweats. I was waking up literally drenched. My whole head was like I jumped in a pool. My entire shirt was soaking wet. And I would wake up with like heat rashes. Like I kept getting rashes like on my face here, like reappearing rashes. I would get rashes all over my chest here, my entire stomach. And you'll see in the photos, my entire stomach and thighs, my buttocks covered in hives. No one could explain what was wrong with me. I literally had like people asking doctors they worked with what was wrong with me. No one could put their finger on it. My hair was falling out, which I also got gaslit out. I had like some young female nurse practitioner, no offense to anyone in this situation, but she was like, well, if you don't want Western medication, you need to go somewhere else. If your hair was falling out, it would be falling out in clumps. I'm like, bitch, it is. I'm Italian. This shit is just thick. Like I was literally like losing clumps of hair. My skin was falling off. I was getting weird rashes. And all of this is what got me super obsessed with nervous system and lymph. And let me tell you, clearing out my body, first of all, I did a parasite cleanse. Then I found out there was mold in my house. So now I'm going to do a mold cleanse. But the biggest thing that helped me get out of fight or flight, clear my skin up from that disgusting fungal cystic acne, was detoxing my system with lymphatic work daily. Daily. I had a high toxic load. I was on a lot of antibiotics as a kid, and that messes your gut up. We just don't know better. So I hope this story resonated with some of you. If you've been gaslit by the medical industry, if you're chronically ill and sick and you don't have the answers you want, follow my page. I'm trying to post as much information that I can gather that have helped me and has helped my clients, and things I've learned throughout the years, working in a pharmacy for over a decade, being a competitive athlete for over 20 years, dealing with chronic health issues with my skin and my gut and my emotions. So if any of this resonates with you, make sure to follow my page. I'll be posting more about my chronic health history and story and recovery, and hopefully more tips and tricks that will help you take control of your health.